Hi there, this is a quick video about some old technology, a couple of cassette Walkmans that came out at the late 80s, 1988 to 1990. On the left hand side here we have a Sony Sports Walkman, and this model is a WM-BF58 and it's in surprisingly good condition. This was designed to actually be exposed to water, and it could possibly have withstood 30 seconds in water, shallow water, without water ingress into the actual workings of it. So that's the Sony one. A couple of years later, this Aywa came out, and as you can see it's got buttons on the side in a similar arrangement to the Sony, but it's actually a different beast in that this is a cover. It has the model name, which is Aiwa RD7, and it's a Radical cassette player with a radio, just like the one on the left, but it is actually a separate player to the case. So that's the player there, which is significantly smaller, but obviously in this form you would not drop that in water because it wouldn't last very long. Unfortunately I don't have the battery cover here for it, which is a bit of a shame, but both models surprisingly do work today, and as far as I'm aware they've not been opened to have their bouts done. So if you want good long-lasting cassette technology, then probably the late 80s to the early 90s is a good time to get those sets from, ones that were made in those years, because obviously as you got later on to the 1990s, the mid-90s, a lot of decks, particularly Aiwa ones, had capacitor issues, so they're quite rare to find in good working order these days. So I'll just start on this one. So this Sony has got a built-in clock, and it's solar powered. Now it's been sat in a drawer for some time and just exposed now to a little bit of daylight within the house, and it's enough to power it, which is interesting. And if I open it up, there's 4 screws there. I can't remember, I would imagine that there's some sort of backup there to preserve the power to the clock, so maybe there's a capacitor or something in there that can hold a little bit of charge once it's been on a while, and then you don't lose your time. So it's got some basic settings here. So up the top there you've got FM, AM radio, and internally there's a switch here which basically allows you to select between the bands and whether or not you want stereo FM or not. So you have AM, mono or stereo FM frequency. So here is where the batteries go. So they just go in a nice compartment within the player, a bit like some of the earlier Sony players that came out. And also you can see here there's a switch there for the tape selector, which is normal or chrome. So it seems remarkably well made for the time. And I'm just going to pop a cassette in so you can just see that it's still working. So if I press play, and that's on a cassette called That's Excellent Recording, which is I believe it was a chrome tape, this one, yeah, a type 2, and the tape is working fine. Actually the tape is as old as the cassette player. I think it's around the year 1989, so No problems there. So I'll just leave that playing a minute. You can see, possibly hear the motor there turning. So there's a double headphone socket at the top, which is another thing that Sony did in the early days, and there's also volume and the tuning for the tuner here, and there's a cable in there which links to the tuning, so you can tune your way along. So that's your analog tuner. It's got a bout clip on the back. That's the bottom. Made in Taiwan. So this is just before everything got sort of shifted to other places like Singapore and China. So that was made in Taiwan. And to go with it, I believe this set of headphones came with it, and this one is actually a MDR W15, and it's labelled sports on the side to kind of go with the yellow branding kind of colour of the sports products that Sony did. I've got another set here which came with another Sony deck, and this is the W10 version, but instead of sport they have turbo printed on the sides there. Just one thing about these headphones are quite collectible these days, and often you can get them if you pick up a cheap cassette deck on eBay. If you're looking carefully, you can sometimes get hold of the original headphones, and they do sound very, very, very good. They're also very loud, and the way that they kind of sit in your ear, you do have to be a little bit careful, and probably because the outputs from these decks were a lot louder than what a lot of the modern stuff is these days, then you can really damage your ears, or at least make your ears ring. So just a word of warning. But they do sound very, very nice, and they do kind of isolate the noise from outside as well really nicely. So so that's a brief look at the Sony there. I could plug this in actually and plug it into one of the ones and press play. Can we hear anything? So yes, we can. It sounds like it's working. And if I press stop, there's a button for the radio. And that's the tuning for the radio. So switching off here, switching off the radio is the same as turning it all off, as long as you've got the cassette turned off here. So if the radio's on, yeah, the tape doesn't play. There you go, so you can switch between the two there. No auto reverse, so this is straightforward. Play one side, turn the tape over type technology. So I'll move that one over there, and we'll have a look at this Aiwa. So this Aiwa RD7, this is a really nice sounding tape deck actually, and again it seems to have lasted reasonably well, apart from losing the cover here. This one is made in Singapore, and it's got the graphic equalizer on the front. It happens to be auto reverse as well, though I don't think it says on there. Yeah, so we've got operation here. I've got a feeling the auto reverse doesn't work on this. It does play, but it doesn't change the direction. So just give you a quick overrun. So we have a tuner here for the radio. There's also a band, AM, FM, and I'm not sure if there's stereo on there, maybe not. So there's a separate one for radio and for tape power off, so it's very similar to the Sony here, only one headphone socket. So it's got directional there, and probably, oh yes, so it has got a it's got a stereo mono selector switch, which serves dual purpose by the looks of it, for tape as well. So metal or chrome, and that's it really. It's just a functional, kind of looking like a basic one, but with the older Aiwa imprints here. They did change the style not long after that, and the case is a little bit bigger. I believe I'm missing something here. I would have thought I would have had some rubber bits to protect against water ingress, so this case is probably not going to work quite as well as the Sony. So it's got some button sort of pressings on here. This is just rubber here, and you just press through, as you can see, into the actual case. So the case is quite basic. What is interesting is it's got a couple of things of interest. So it's got a flap here, so this exposes some of these top things on the top, which is good. So if I just pop that in again, exposes the headphone there, so you would have expected maybe something to seal that up. And also we have the basic controls for the volume and the tuner, which is the most important one, and that goes down like that. What it's also got here is a UV indicator, so this does change if you happen to be outside in lots of sun. This is a warning indicator to warn you to take some shade. So that's quite a unique design there. It's got a back clip on the back, and it's just another way of having a similar thing to here, but less bulky for when you want to use the cassette player at home. And let's just pull that out and try the tape we have here. So I don't believe there's an eject on there, and this one just slides in. Like so, and play. As you can see, it's playing. Actually, it looks like it's going backwards, so maybe the direction does work on it. I don't think it does. Maybe it only plays, yeah, so there's probably a fault on this, in that when you want to play side A, for instance, you'd have to put side A downwards, because it's actually playing side A backwards, like that. So something that could be looked at when I have time. It's always about time. So yeah, it's a nice deck. It's got good sound quality as well. So let's just unhook these wires a minute. So I think these two headphones here have probably got the same drivers inside. As I say, they're quite collectible now. So yeah, that seems to play fine. Let's just try. Yeah, that switch should be just making it change over. So it could be something plastic that's gone in there, and I'll have to take that apart to have a look at that. So if anyone's interested to see what one of these look like inside, then I'll get around to doing that at some point. But for now, I hope you enjoyed looking at a couple of cassette decks used for outdoors that would have been popular around the late 80s, early 1990s. And yeah, I would say my favourite is probably the Sony, because it's in such good condition, and it really looks like it's not had use. I mean, it's one of these things as well which is quite bright, and maybe they didn't get as much use because people could see you coming with one of these. So you probably had to be a particular type to be wearing that on your belt buckle, maybe skating along or something. So whereas this was a bit more conservative, and you could obviously take it out of the housing and use it at home as a regular sort of cassette player, or just regular use away from the hazards of the beach and the countryside, etc. So yeah, well, thank you for watching, and I'll try to do some more videos on some retro stuff in the future.